Come all you men and women here and listen to me song. It's only 1,000 verses, so I should keep you long. It's concerning the adventures of an old canal barge on the day I sailed afoul the mast on the good ship Calibar. Now the captain was a strapping mon, all of 5'2". His eyes was pink, his nose was red and his cheeks was navy blue. He wore a rusty medal as he'd won in the Boer War, and the captain's wife was passenger cook on the good ship Calibar. Now the captain says to me mon, look here me mon, says he, just want to be a sailor and sail the raging sea. Just want to be a sailor on foreign seas to row. For we am bound for the Patent shaft with half a ton of coal.
Our heritage give us the dialect that we got because it was used by us so nobody else would know it. You know what I mean? It's like an Indian speaking Indian. You know what I mean? He speaks Indian because that's his heritage, he's Indian. Now, we speak English and there's but our heritage, I mean, you've took enough of our heritage, you ain't taking no more. You've took enough, you took all our industry. I mean, you talk about making steel, you know, you're standing in the place that was the most famous for making steel was.
The identity of the region was mainly through industry. And although dialect was important, it was almost like secondary. So within the communities, the dialect was important. But as an identity, the region was identified by its industries, because you could probably pick up something anywhere in the world that was made in the Black Country at that time. Since industry has gone, the dialect has seemed to become more important in terms of claiming an identity for the people, both locally and as a region.
I worked with people from the Black Country. I worked in an office and I worked with the girl from Cradley. And I think they're nice people.
Actually, there's still this connectedness and this local identification. I still feel that. And I think it's in that the language and the dialect still survives. It's in that kind of quality. And that's true, I do think, still of Oldbury. Not as much as perhaps places like Cradley Heath.
Well, he was over the depot at Old Hill and he said to him, do you want a job as a dustman? So Armick said, oh, he'd come out the army. And he said, yeah, suit me. And he went to work at Old Hill, and after about a week, I said to him, how's your job? Do you like your job, Mick? And he said, oh, it's great, job's all right. I'll be all right when I can understand the people I work with.
When I was in the secondary modern school, we had this lady come and we'd got to speak proper, right? So it was proper hello like this, you see. So imagine 35 girls trying to speak Cradley and we all spoke Brummy, whatever, majority, we were there trying to speak like this. How now, brown cow, you see. So if you got it wrong, crack on your fingers. So at the end of the lesson, when they were going home, it was a corridor school, so the kiddies who were going home could see in the classroom was all us prefects standing with our hands on our heads because we wasn't speaking proper English.
Well, the wench is something that you call your sister. Usually it's something like your sister that you call the wench. Or women were called wenches, weren't they, before? But it's like a term of endearment. Yeah, our wench. Tony he'll say, have you spoke to our wench lately? No. What's our wench want? Has it been on the phone? Yeah. And if he's talking about her, he refers to her as a wench, not a name.
He thinks, my London missus, he thinks that derogatory. See, wench. And I mean, I dare say, if you look it up in the dictionary, probably is derogatory. I think it derives from wenches in taverns, you know what I mean, things like that. But they always called them wenches, wench, young wench. as a young wench. In the black country, it was accepted as a done thing, you know what I mean? I've seen 4 young wenches up the park, you know what I mean? It weren't meant disrespectful, whereas in other parts of the country, it's very disrespectful. I use it like, I call my daughters wenches. I've got 2 daughters, now I call them wenches. God bless them. And I wouldn't have nothing said wrong about them. They're my daughters, you know what I mean? But I do use the word wench.
We used to make jokes up, saying, they say, oh, your baby's ugly. He said, yes, I know, we used to feed her with a catapult, that's why it got shutters on her pram, you know. My mum got mixed up one week, she put the nappy on the wrong end, that's how ugly the baby was, you know, but I mean...
Well, the babby is a term of endearment that is used quite widely, I think, in the Black Country, and it refers to anybody from birth to death, I would have thought. If you've got a child of your own, it doesn't matter how old they are, you still call them the babby. My babby is my daughter, Vicky. She's 47. And my grandson's 18 and he's a babby as well.
Okay, so if the children are playing and somebody's a little bit upset, I say, oh, come here, me babby. And I bring them over to me and I put them on my knee and I go, you all right, me babby? And the children love it and it's not a word I should use in school at all. Like, we shouldn't call them babbies or babies or anything, but it does make me smile and the other staff, and they all will have it, oh, come here, me babby.
Babby, you see, babby ain't really Black Country, it's a cross between Black Country and Brummie. It is, because Brummies use the same word, you know what I mean? But I mean, he said, what did my old man used to say? Oh, Costow, kick a ball again and wow and get it with your head till it bosses. Costow, kick a ball again and wow and get it with your head till it bosses. Can you kick a ball against the wall and head it with your head till it bursts? That's Black Country. Now, that's more Gornal way of Black Country, where they're really broad. You know what I mean? It's the same as here in Oldbury, you'd have the house you lived in, you'd go out the back and they'll have a brew house outside, and it would be in the backyard. But I mean, if you went over to Gornal, it wouldn't be a backyard. It'd be a brew house, but it'd be in a fold.
When I got married to my late wife Sue, who was a lot posher than I was, she was saying, "What are you going on about?" And I was saying, "You know, it's the fiddle. We're going to have some. When's the bab's going to have some fiddle?" And of course, the kids would just think, "What on earth is he talking about?" So I think that's a word that was generally used in all working class families, and with snap when they'd have a break at the factory and go out in the yard, they'd have a bit of snap and some fiddle. So I heard that continually, probably all my life until my mum and dad died and all my aunties died.
What we still have, we love brains, me and my mate who lives along the path there. And she goes and has got a car and a drives, and it goes and gets them from somewhere down Cradley, I think. They rung me last week, last Thursday, and they said to me, "Do you want some brains for your tea?" Oh, I said, "Yes, please." He says, "I'll be along in a minute." And Brink comes along with the dish, with the brains for my tea. Pig's trotters. Me and my dad used to have pig's trotters. And I used to buy him occasionally when I was married. And Brian, as I say, he's my ex-husband. I got shot of him in 1975, but as I say, he used to say, "Ooh, can you think of all the shit they've walked in?" You know.
Grey pies and grotty pudding, I still eat them now. Oh my God, I love them. I love them. My missus don't like them. She said they're horrible, but I'll cook them now. You know. But of course, you've got to remember, I'm 67, so I was born in 48. In 1948, you just come through a war. You know what I mean? The war was over, but you just come through a war. So offal was a very easy thing to get hold of. You know what I mean? Now, our mother used to make, I do it now, more out of tradition. Our mother used to make all her own faggots. You know what I mean? I'd get the offal, cook it, boil it up, get the kettle, and make the skin and make the faggots. Well, I occasionally make them now. You know what I mean? Grey peas, well, them pigeon peas, they're as hard as iron, but you used to soak them for 2 days and then boil them for 3 days. You know what I mean? And then our nan's grey peas, we had an old range, solid fuel range, you know what I mean? Well, our nan had a swing oil that come round with a saucepan on and a kettle on. And they used to hang the grey pies on there, and all they used to do was keep putting water in. As it boiled dry, put a bit more water in. And the more soft as it sound, they wouldn't do it now because they'd say health and safety, you quartered this, you quartered that. But it never done me no harm, I mean. You know what I mean? But, I mean, yeah, and you would have a bowl of grey pie, same with stew. You know, I used to put pig's feet, pig's tails, anything in it, you know what I mean?
And one of her phrases was, we were sitting there and she was talking about these two blokes that worked in the factory. One was as big as a buckhouse, which meant he was a really big, well-set bloke, like a shy-house that used to pull the cut the boats. And then he says, and the other one wore bare-fed through as a mackerel. Well, she spoke quite quickly, which a lot of black country people do. And my Uncle Eric was there, and I looked at my Uncle Eric, and I says, Auntie Glad, what have you said? He says, what? I said, what have you just said about the bloke? He says, he's as big as a buckhouse. I said, no, the other one. Oh, we bare-fed through as a mackerel. I said, well, what does it mean? He says, well, this is a big chap. This one's slim like you, who could do with a bit of meat on him. So he bare-fed through as a mackerel, a thin fish.
Chobbling, you do this to annoy your sister. You get as close as you can to her and you chobble in her ear, which means that you get your food and you mash it up in your mouth.
And there was a joke going around. This lad was crying on the side of the canal, and he says, "What's the matter?" He says, "My mate's in the canal. The mate's in the cut." And he says, "I can't see him." He says, "My mate's off my Sony."
My grandmother used to have say to me aunt, Rasmussen's dropping us a belly of chicklings round. And they used to put them in this big tin bath and then keep turning them inside out and washing them and that. And then they'd boil it, chicklings, pig's intestines. Yeah, and as I say, they used to wash them up. Ooh, that was something I never liked. Me dad used to love them. They used to say, "We've got to save your dad some."
Dad used to have pig's trotters and cow wheel.
And what was
tripe.
Tripe. John, my husband's dad used to eat tripe and onion.
You know, I can still smell the tripe. Oh yes, chicklings. Oh yes, we had to have them as well. The innards, the bits of.
I suppose it'd be like indigestion tubes, wasn't it? I don't know.
The bits of the guts, I reckon. But we used to have to eat them. I couldn't eat it, but I can still smell the tripe cooking. Oh no! You see, we were poor. I'm one of 6.
It was a standing joke with us, sort of thing. Ron's mum always called it a piece. You know, do you want a piece? So either I'd say it or Jane would say, "Have you had your piece?" My sandwich used to have. I think used to have a cheese sandwich. I think he did when he went to Ron's. But no, since Mum died, they have Kit Kats.
You see, you can eat a pig, you can eat everything on the pig, but there's one thing you can't eat, that's the squale. But I mean, I ate ospreys. My mate, God bless him, he's in hospital now, he's 92, God bless him. He was the knackerman where I lived, in Smethwick. See, now the knackerman used to put the osses down, and they used to cut, if it was an healthy oss, they'd cut it up, and he should have sent it to the hunt. Hagley Hunt used to have a hand, hello, when I lived in Smethwick, and Hagley Hunt was a good way away, but they used to come and fetch him when he'd shot them, and they'd carve them for the hounds. But he used to wrap it up in a piece of brown paper, and I'd stick it down to our old man used to carve it, we used to eat it. But I mean, see, the French ate us meat, they all look well, you know what I mean? So of course you're more widow, but...
The perception of Brummies and black country people is that we're all thick, stupid, and we're not. Just because we don't speak like them, it don't mean to say that we're stupid. But that's what everybody thinks.
And a little story is when I was filming for the History Channel in Marpardoes, which is in Cradley, and I was waiting for him to come. There were some old gents there just having a pint, and they asked me what I was doing there. I said, I'm doing a film for the History Channel. Oh, right. Well, what it's about black country. Well, where you from, the old bloke said to me. I said, I'm just up there, by Rowley Bunk. And he sort of paused and he said, so what's your number? I said, what do you mean, what's my number? What's your phone number? And I said, 0121, and he went, huh. And all his mates says, what's the matter? He says, they've sent a bloke from the Black Country that's got an 0121 number. And I says, well, what's the matter with that? He says, it's Brummidge, mate. He says, it should be 01384. And I said, look, the road that I live in, 3 doors up, it's 01384. And he says, well, move then. This old chap, move. And I think that sums up the character as well. It's like, this is black, this is white, and you do this. And I think that's how strongly the identity is like marked, really.
A Catholic was the old handkerchief, spit on it, and oh, look at you here, mucky devil. If people see you and they get the handkerchief out, they think, here it comes. And she used to spit on her handkerchief and used to wipe around your face, up your nose and round about. Now, and used to say, now, if you get lost, wait by the scales in Woolworths. So, because in those days there's no mobile phones to say, where are you? Sort of thing. And there'd usually be about 8 kids waiting by the scales because the parents would purposely lose them so they could have a bit of time to stop, do a bit of shopping. But they know we'd all be waiting at the scales, yeah.
And like our gate was here and theirs was there. And they used to play in the road. And this family used to say, go and play up your own end or go and play by your own house. And they used to say, we are by our own house. No, he said, do you remember that, Mother? He said to me, when Mrs. Birchall used to tell us to go and play by our own house. So, well, we lived right opposite them. The house was complete, exactly opposite.
So I went back and said to my nan, I forgot what the girl's name was. Lily can't play with me. Why is that? Because her mum says go and play up the own end. And my nan knew the history of the mum, that she owed rent and everything was on the slate and so on. And she said, well, you cork off up a chicken if your mother's a duck. And this lady said this, and I said, I beg your pardon. And she said, you cork off up a chicken if your mother's a duck. Meaning you can't be somebody who you aren't. So although the mother is putting on airs and graces, I know the true story. So her daughter Lily's no better than you.
Stop your blarting. Go on, shut up. Yeah, that's another. That was another one. Like pulling yourself together. Don't get a bob on yourself. Here, have that round your ear hole. And stop blarting.
Stop blarting.
Stop your blarting, or I'll give you something to blart for. Was our dad's best one.
Give me something to blart about, so I'll give you another one.
A cog winder is a punch. So I'll give you a cog winder, and it was usually the biggest punch you could give somebody. You used to bring it from the back of your head and used to swing it as cog. Yeah, we give him a good cog winder.
His dad used to do door-to-door. He was a door-to-door salesman, and they recognised that the family had like a second-hand shop. Well, he's refereeing a match the one Sunday morning, and these 2 young lads were just messing around, walking past all the games up on Line Farm playing fields, and they happened to notice him. They turned round, and one of the young lads said, "Hey, it's him from the second-hand shop down the road." And they said, "Oh, it is, yeah." Well, they suddenly turned round, and when he come towards the side, and all of a sudden these 2 young lads suddenly started shouting, "The referee's a tatter, the referee's a tatter." And of course he stood there and he just had to burst out laughing himself, because he said it was just that funny. He said just 2 young kids like that could come out with obviously a chant that's used at football, but not in that way. They've added the tatter bit on it.
It's the heritage of where you come from. It's part of everyday life, and we should keep the dialects and not have it all like a big melting pot and all speak the Queen's English.
But the thing that distinguishes it is that real strong sense of local belonging, which, as I say, has been recreated and reinvented by all the generations and all the communities that have arrived since. And that's the things that makes it strong, and that's the thing that makes it fascinating. Language is definitely a part of that, because I think when you identify with a place through kinship networks and through its history and the relationships that those families have had with those places over decades, we have a connectedness to this area and to this place that goes all the way back through our sense of ourselves as a family, and that's true of many of the people that live here. And I think that's what gives it its strength. It's that kind of, it's over 1 million people, but the thing that attaches us to the place is our family connections and our very strong local identification.
And I realised then that I am who I was created by this back-to-back house in Oldbury when it was full of colourful characters where you could stand at the outdoor and watch blokes stand on a chair and sing. And I just thought,
If he went to a party and they had a drink and they started singing, he'd start singing Any Old Iron. Because he'd heard me go to a party as his father and me sing it. And I heard it because my father sung it when I was a kid. And my father heard it because he heard it when he was a kid. Any old iron, any old iron, any old iron. Yo, look sweet, talk about it sweet. Yo, look at dapper from your head to your feet. Dressed in style, old great boy. With father's old great iron. I wouldn't get up for an old man's that old iron. Old iron. You know what I mean?
I used to have to go up the outdoor for me dad to fetch his bottles of beer. So he used to give me the money and I used to have to walk up. We lived in Bristol Lane then, and I used to have to walk up to the beaches and get his bottles of beer. And it used to be Albright's, and I think it was pale ale. And I used to hate coming back with the clanking, as I say, of the bottles because everybody knew where you'd been. And my friend Gwen, the other day we were talking about this, and she said she had to do the same for her granddad because she lived with her granddad. And she said, and when it stopped, when the age restriction came in, he used to still send her and tell her to stand outside till somebody come that she knew and they'd fetch it.
Yeah, our gran looked a bigger drink than our lady, but what our gran used to do, we used to wait till I'd gone out and say, Gran, nip round the out and get me a jug of stout. And drink it and send me for another one. Don't tell your mother I've had two, you know what I mean? You know what I mean? I used to fetch it in a white enamel jug at one time. Now, that used to hold about 3 pints.
Horses used to go down the middle of the road, so you couldn't go in the Oss Road in case you got run over.
Plenty of everything used to be brought on, mainly on by horse and cart.
That's the Oss Road.
And that's the Oss Road, because poo. The horses pooed.
Yeah, we used to have to go out
and,
with our
there was a great shout, horse mowers, all the children used to run out with the buckets, clean it up to put on the garden.
Yeah, well, it's the Oss Road. Yeah.
I mean, I could name the bread used to come by horse, the milk, the coal, the wood, the salt. We used to salt in big blocks, celery man.
Funny enough, when you ask the kids, they don't know the origins of why it's called the Oss Road, and obviously it's from the cut and the big massive Buckshire osses that used to pull the boats, and you'd only have a narrow towpath, so if you were coming down the towpath and he was coming the other way, they'd say you better keep out the Oss Road, otherwise you'll be in the cut. But it then changed to, when transport changed and you got the wider roads, it would be keep out the Oss Road, as if it was just the main road to cross it. Or if you were going out playing, your mum would say, keep on the patch but don't keep out that Oss Road, because then you'd have motors.
I used to buy osses off a bloke in Tipton named Garrett. God bless him. Now, them still in Tipton, the grandsons. You know what I mean? And now that's another thing, see? To buy oss off Garrett, I used to have to go to the Coronation pub. And he used to bring the oss in the bar for me to have a look at. He used to bring, I'm only 67, so we ain't going back that long, 40 years long. He used to bring the oss in the bar for me to have a look at. Railway osses, big osses. But that, nobody looked on it as being strange. It was the done thing. It's the same as that on now about these tethered osses being tethered here, there and everywhere on chains. Well, that's the way that... But of course, you've got to remember, these people kept them osses for a living. They either pulled a coal barge, they either pulled a coal cart, a scrap cart, or done something. So the last thing... I mean, my old man taught more of the oss than he taught to me. He did. You know, he looked... Because he'd got to earn his living with it. You know what I mean? So it was a ritual. If it snowed, our old man would go out and look after the oss and sort it out, you know what I mean?
Keep out the Oss Road. Oh, that's right. You've got to keep out the Oss Road. Yeah, it was called the Oss Road all the way. Well, yeah, the Oss Road. Well, it was always the Oss Road to my father, you know, and most of the time for my mother, I think. I don't know when it stopped being an Oss Road, I think probably in the 30s, didn't it?
We used to have a lady live over the road from us, and they were all factory workers, you know, all the women that worked on the estate were factory workers, but And I suppose really, in retrospect, she was only trying to make herself nice, but she would be going out to the factory not in her overalls, bringing her best glad rags as though she was going out down the club on a Saturday night. And of course all the rest of the people in the close would go, oh, here it comes, fanny for knacker pants, you know, and hair's got a bit in a bob in her. But I suppose it didn't in a way, it was just trying to make herself look as nice as she possibly could.
Got a bob on yourself, that's when they bring you down to earth if they thought you were showing off or a bit posh, you know. If you had a new jacket or a new pair of shoes, and I say, oh, look at him here he thinks he got a bob on himself.
The great thing about all of these things is it really kind of conjures up your parents, and it will be true for everybody. These are sort of moral, they've got moral kind of undertones to them, and having a bob on yourself was one of the worst crimes you could commit. You know, thinking too highly of yourself, or imagining you're better than the rest. That was always, that was always a very bad thing to do, and was not to be tolerated. And parents would enforce that. That was always a problem. Yeah.
You know, our dad, when I had whooping cough, I remember this because I would be about 5 or 6. He used to take us down to the canal, because they used to coat the ropes in tar.
That's right,
and they
yes.
reckon the tar was good for you. If you got whooping cough, it made you breathe more easily. They used to have the tar ropes to breathe on. You used to have to sniff it in, the fumes, the tar ropes. Yeah.
Or even when they came to tarmac the roads. Oh, I never used to, but we had towels. They used to come out then, because they used to put proper tar on in those days, quite thick. And the smell was...
Yeah.
And
they used to reckon it was good for your chest.
So we was always... I mean, my old man taught me to swim in the cut. He did. And I taught Mark. You ask him. You ask our Graham. Our old man, he was walking on the cut with him. I was only little. And he got the dog by the collar and he threw him in the cut. And the dog swum. And when he come to the head, oh my God, his collar pulled him out. He said, he's all right now. And then he got me and thrown me in. It's right, and I went and told our mother. I said, he's teaching you to swim. I said, they tell me that. He just shut me in. So the cut was a big part of our life. My old man was a blacksmith, so he shoed cut horses. He shoed horses on the cut, you know what I mean? So, yeah, the cut, and when I lived in Smerick, I lived on the cut and on the railway. Well, where I lived, just round the corner, you had Elmer Street Railway sidings. They used to bring all the steel in. It was like a leg off the main line. Well, they had horses pulling the carriages. So you had to move them about. You know what I mean? So we used to call them railway horses. You know, well, if you wanted to buy a good driving horse, you always bought a railway horse.
But I mean, the thing about the Black Country and the village relationships, people talk about it disappearing, but it's been recreated again and again and again with new influxes. It's been the way that people from the Caribbean have occupied these same spaces, people from Bangladesh, from Pakistan, from India. You know, in my street now, when I moved there 37 years ago, there were families of Italians that had worked at Albright and Wilson, and their grandparents were there, and there are 3 generations living within a few streets of each other. Now, a lot of those have moved or died or gone, and they were replaced by people from the Caribbean, and you know, there were the same sort of extended family networks.
Now, I don't know if it is a black country song, but if you want to know a black country song, God Lord, the greatest black country, see, that's what I'm saying about heritage. You've all tried to nick it. Oh no, but they have. I mean, if you look at the most famous song, A Long Way to Tipperary, you know, they all want to say it was wrote in Yorkshire, it was done here, it was done there. It was wrote here in Oldbury. A Long Way to Tipperary, of course I do.
Could you give us a few bars?
Because I've been in the army, ain't I?
Could you give us a few bars?
It's a long way to Tipperary, it's a long way to go. It's a long way to Tipperary, to the sweetest girl I know. Blimey, goodbye Piccadilly, farewell Leicester Square. I can't believe I'm singing. It's a long, long way to Tipperary, but my heart lies there.